like you to picture something that you're all familiar with. It's a pyramid, and it's got layers, hierarchical layers regarding data and information. At the bottom lives data, above that lives information, above that lives knowledge, and at the top of the pyramid lives wisdom. Information being the relationships between the data, knowledge being the patterns in those relationships, and wisdom being the principles that lie beneath it that would allow you to predict patterns in the future. Now, we live in a world of amazing search capabilities, but in spite of that, they're baby steps when it comes to this pyramid. Put very simply, we search data well, we search wisdom terribly. It's much more difficult to search wisdom than it is data. Thought of another way, what lives on a web page or lives in an article that you've written is fairly easy to search, especially if I'm searching on letter patterns or something that's explicit. Being able to search for those patterns that relate among things is much more difficult. Now, as we move to these higher levels of search, if you want to think about, instead of searching web pages, think about searching minds, or think about searching the future. How do you search the future? How do you search what's about to be? As you get to these higher levels of search, the flash I want to leave you with is this. The query itself begins to shape the results that come out. It becomes conflated. You can no longer have a pure query and a pure set of results that are just a response to that query. In fact, what The Economist is doing in partnership with us is to shape the conversation, to choose queries in that more complex search space that will actually cause invention. Now, let me give a classic example of this. I'm going to tell you a very old story, but I'm going to give it with a new twist on it. It's the story of Archimedes. You remember it probably from some sophomore high school class. Hero, the tyrant of Syracuse, has a crown made by an artisan. And he wonders whether the artisan has diluted the gold that he gave him, maybe with some base metal like lead, made a crown out of it, and kept some of that gold under his mattress. Now, Hero was intelligent enough to know that if he could measure the density of the crown, he would know whether it was made out of pure gold or not. Weighing the crown was easy, but in order to know the density, he had to know the volume of the crown. So he took it to someone in his community in Syracuse that everyone said, Archimedes, he's a smart guy. He'll tell you the answer to how to measure the volume of that crown. And when Archimedes was posed with this challenge, asked the question, he responded, there is no way to measure the volume of an irregularly shaped object. That night, Archimedes went home, and as he lowered himself into his bathtub for the night, he noticed the water rising on the sides of this rectangular receptacle, and he realized that he was in the act of measuring the volume of his irregularly shaped body. As the story goes, he began shouting, Eureka, Eureka, I have found it, I have found it. He leaps naked out of the tub and runs through the streets of Syracuse. Now, the part of the story that never gets told and that I'd like to emphasize as part of this flash is that wasn't Archimedes' first bath. Why was this smart guy who knew about a problem in geometry unable to solve it before? Because the question had not been posed to him in a clear, organized, discrete way. The posing of that question actually caused the bath to take on a new significance. That's what happens when you pose challenges in a way that is intriguing, that engages human minds, is now you have not only moved from the point of searching data and web pages and text to the point of searching minds, which you do all the time, whether you appreciate it or not, on Facebook when you do an open call to your friends. Now, what was the name of that bar? Somewhere in St. Louis, they had a funky piano, and then they answer the question. Type that into Google and see what you get out of Google. But it works when you're going to minds. But in this search for the future, you are actually searching not only on what people already know, but what they're about to invent. You're searching Archimedes, and you're making his next bath take on a whole new significance. That's the nature of the challenges that The Economist has been working on with us. We're delighted to have them in partnership. And if I were to leave one message with you, it's that if you want to change the future, in spite of all the effort you're going to put into doing that, and I agree with all of those, learn to ask important questions, and that will change the future. So I think Matt's going to come out, and we're going to talk about the upcoming challenge.
We are. Yeah, thank you very much, Alph. Before we do that, I'm just going to ask you one question about what you were talking about. And I wondered, as you look at all the challenges that you've done through InnoCentive, what's been the one that's come closest so far to getting you to leap out of your bath and run naked down the streets of Syracuse?
You know, just the fact that these things were happening was a bit of a shock to me. When we launched this business, we didn't know whether people would engage voluntarily in these things. Now, it happened that we launched this business in June of 2001, followed by 9/11, followed by anthrax scares. And when we launched it initially, and it's evolved a great deal, we were looking for new molecular structures that didn't exist anywhere in the literature. And we asked people to prove that they'd successfully produced them by mailing us vials of their white powder. And so September and October, after the launch in June, we became excited in a good way when vials of white powder showed up in our mailbox from post office boxes and destinations all around the world that we'd never heard of before. And so we were excited, but at the same time, everyone else was putting on full bunny suits and running out of the offices.
Did your office get shut down by the feds? Or
we never did.
No.
We never did. We kind of snuck through that little period of our history unscathed.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to talk a bit about this challenge that we're doing together. On September the 14th and 15th, we'll be chairing the second annual Economist Conference on Human Potential. And that will be just before a special report that I'm working on at the moment. It comes out, just after that comes out, on the future of work and jobs. If anyone has any thoughts on the future of work and jobs, by the way, any help gratefully received. You can get me on Twitter at mattbish, M-A-T-T-B-I-S-H, or email me at matthewbishop@economist.com looking for big ideas about how the world of work is going to change. But at that conference also, we're going to be announcing the result of our latest challenge with InnoCentive. I've been working for a while on this project with a number of economists and business leaders and social entrepreneurs and others, trying to reconceive how we measure our progress as societies. The data that we've used over the years, whether they be GDP or profit or some of the other measures of performance, I think have led us down extremely badly, and the financial crisis of 2008 really came along and showed us that we were fixated on the wrong measures of human progress. And I've been working on this idea to create a ranking of countries based upon other measures of progress, which we're calling the Global Social Competitiveness Index. And in that spirit, the challenge that we're going to work on together is to come up with the idea for a human potential index. And as I say, that's posted already on your site, and we will be interviewing the person with the best idea at the meeting in September the 14th and 15th. So, Alph, you wanted to talk a bit about that challenge in a bit more detail. But I think it's an absolutely crucial idea, and the time has come. Pretty much as in the 1930s, we saw the Great Depression trigger the most intense effort to redefine how we measured our economy. I hope that this crisis is going to lead to a re-energization of that measurement process so that we can actually measure our own progress as a society better. And this challenge, I think, is a big step in the right direction. So, Alph, over to you.
Well, Matt, first of all, I want to say we're delighted to be working with you on it. In fact, you're the ones who brought the concept to us, and so we're pleased with that. It's of great importance to us because we wouldn't exist as a business if it wasn't for this latent human potential, if it wasn't for unused cycles of cognition that we can bring to bear on the challenges that we post. I just recently finished reading Clay Shirky's Cognitive Surplus, and he recounts an interview in there with a TV executive who, when he was describing Wikipedia, this executive looks at him and says, how do they find the time? And Shirky responds, in your industry, you don't have the right to ask that, because the entire Wikipedia was built with 1% of the time that Americans spend watching television. So when you think about how much unutilized potential there is out there buried in the human race, I'm excited to get a measurement on it as step one, and then translate it into action as step two.
Great. So please, do spread the word and take part in that great competition. So thank you very much.
Thanks.